In the intricate web of human connections, few things are as deceiving as a smile, a friendly gesture, a kind word, or a warm laugh can create the illusion of trust and understanding. Yet, beneath these simple gestures can lie intentions that don't align with the surface, disdain masked by politeness, insecurity concealed within compliments, jealousy cloaked in laughter. In our everyday lives, we find ourselves naturally wanting to believe in the goodwill of those around us. We rarely pause to examine whether someone's actions truly match their words or if their friendly demeanor reflects genuine respect and care. Why would we? After all, it's comforting to think that people's words are as true as their smiles and that everyone around us has our best interests at heart. But, as many of us have painfully discovered, not all smiles are sincere, not all compliments are well meant, and not all friendships are authentic. Too often, we fall into the trap of believing in the authenticity of others without questioning, without looking deeper. We get swept up in the comfort of polite company, assuming that kindness, laughter, and friendly conversation are signs of a meaningful connection. And so, we invest in people who may not have earned that trust, who may only be present for their own motives, hidden behind practiced smiles and well-chosen words. What if we could see beyond these appearances? Imagine if we could discern genuine warmth from feigned friendship, detect hidden disdain behind a compliment, or sense envy beneath polite laughter. Would it change the way we approach relationships? Would it help us reserve our energy, time, and trust for those who genuinely value us, sparing us from investing in hollow connections? Here is where Stoicism offers invaluable guidance. The Stoics, masters of emotional resilience, understood the complexities of human relationships. They taught that while emotions are natural, they should not govern our lives. Instead, we should seek to develop a discerning eye, one that can separate appearance from substance, words from action, and shallow gestures from deep respect. Stoic thinkers like Epictetus and Seneca recognized the value of clarity, of observing the behavior of those around us not with cynicism, but with realism. They argued that by focusing on people's actions rather than the words they speak, we can create a kind of mental armor that protects us from superficial relationships that drain our energy and waste our time. Consider this: Epictetus once advised that it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This isn't just about situations, it extends to relationships. People's behaviors reveal more than their words ever could, and our power lies in recognizing this truth without letting it disillusion us. Instead of internalizing others' actions or taking their behavior personally, Stoicism teaches us to observe with detachment, to accept what we see without letting it disturb our peace. The wisdom here is not in avoiding relationships, but in navigating them with awareness and insight. By developing this insight, we protect ourselves from the disappointment of unmet expectations, of misplaced trust, and from the exhausting cycle of emotional investment in relationships that don't reciprocate. The Stoics believed that peace of mind isn't just a result of our own attitudes, but also of the choices we make and who we allow into our lives. When we understand how to discern the genuine from the insincere, we equip ourselves with the tools to cultivate relationships that truly support our growth and well-being. In this journey through the hidden signs of insincerity, we'll uncover the subtle ways people mask their true intentions. From backhanded compliments to accidental exclusions, we'll learn to spot the markers of superficial relationships and manipulative behaviors. With each example, we'll explore how Stoicism provides us with a framework for identifying, addressing, and moving beyond these interactions with a sense of calm and self-respect. So, as we dive deeper into the teachings of Stoic thinkers, let us question what lies beneath the surface of those around us. Let us look not at the words they choose, but at the actions that speak louder. Through the lens of Stoicism, We'll uncover the subtle art of discernment, creating a mental shield that guards our peace and self-worth. This exploration isn't about distrust, it's about clarity. And in seeking clarity, we empower ourselves to build relationships that bring genuine joy and fulfillment, sparing us the needless heartache of misplaced trust. 1. Hidden criticisms behind jokes. Hidden criticisms masked as jokes are pervasive in many circles, from personal friendships to the workplace, and even at the highest levels of politics and media. This behavior is often meant to undercut and undermine in a way that allows the person to deflect any backlash by simply claiming, "It's just a joke." But these jokes frequently carry a veiled message designed to strike at your insecurities, ultimately causing you to second-guess yourself. When someone constantly jokes at your expense, they're subtly attacking your self-esteem, using humor as a shield to avoid direct confrontation while still making you feel inferior. Take, for instance, the case of Barack Obama, who, throughout his presidency, faced relentless jokes and comments about his name, background, and even the smallest missteps. Critics often presented these remarks as humor, but the intention was frequently to question his identity, credentials, or legitimacy. Obama maintained a stoic composure in response, refusing to react with anger or frustration publicly. His calm, grounded approach allowed him to rise above these constant jabs, reflecting the Stoic principle of apatheia, an inner equanimity that prevents us from reacting to provocations that could pull us away from our purpose. Stoic philosophy urges us to respond to these situations by examining the intent behind the humor. True humor, the Stoics would argue, is uplifting and inclusive, meant to bring people together. Epictetus famously observed, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This means taking a step back when faced with demeaning jokes and asking ourselves whether this person genuinely cares about us or if they're merely seeking to assert dominance at our expense. In another high-profile example, Oprah Winfrey, a renowned media mogul, faced years of criticism and thinly veiled jokes targeting her weight, background, and even her ascent to success. Many comments came disguised as humor, but they carried an underlying message questioning her worthiness or ability to lead in the media world. Instead of allowing these jabs to erode her self-confidence, Winfrey used Stoic principles by setting clear boundaries and addressing her critics head-on when necessary. By refusing to let others dictate her self-worth, she reclaimed control over her narrative, embodying the very Stoic principle that we are the masters of our perceptions. A famous Stoic technique that could be applied here is the view from above, where we take a step back from our immediate reactions and try to see the bigger picture, as if observing from a higher vantage point. When faced with someone's mocking humor, we can remind ourselves that these jokes do not change our abilities, achievements, or value as individuals. It's only when we internalize others' words that they start to affect us. Picture a workplace scenario where a senior executive, someone with influence over your career, constantly brings up minor errors in your work as a joke during meetings. This not only puts you on the defensive, but can also erode your standing with other colleagues, as it subtly suggests you're careless or inexperienced. Over time, these comments, although framed as friendly banter, begin to affect how others perceive you. In Stoic fashion, you decide not to let their words control your self-view. Instead of responding defensively or internalizing the criticism, you address the person calmly in a private setting by saying, "I enjoy humor as much as anyone, but I've noticed that some of your jokes bring up my past mistakes. I think we'd both appreciate a workplace where humor supports rather than detracts from our mutual respect." This boundary setting aligns with Stoic principles, as it shows both strength and restraint, turning a potentially diminishing interaction into a moment of self-respect. One powerful takeaway from this is the importance of setting boundaries and recognizing that our reactions are within our control. We cannot stop others from making demeaning jokes, but we can refuse to internalize their words and allow them to shape our self-view. True Stoic resilience involves understanding that humor, when used to degrade, is a reflection of the speaker's insecurities, not a reflection of who we are. In setting these boundaries, we reclaim our power and maintain a sense of self-worth that is untouchable by others' disguised criticisms. 2. Backhanded compliments as tools of control. Backhanded compliments are a common and insidious form of manipulation designed to undermine confidence while allowing the speaker to appear polite or supportive. Phrases like, "Wow, you did surprisingly well on that presentation," or "This is pretty good for someone your age," come across as compliments but are laced with a subtle, condescending tone. These statements are crafted to create self-doubt, forcing you to question whether you truly deserve the achievement or praise. In these situations, Stoicism offers a powerful response by emphasizing self-sufficiency, the idea that our self-worth should not be tethered to others' opinions. Marcus Aurelius, a notable Stoic philosopher, wrote, "People exist for one another. Teach them or endure them." This suggests that we can learn from others' behaviors, using their actions to better understand human nature, or we can choose to endure them without letting their words affect us. Recognizing that a backhanded compliment often reveals more about the speaker's insecurities than it does about our abilities allows us to rise above the subtle negativity. Consider Michelle Obama, who faced countless backhanded compliments and veiled criticisms during her tenure as the First Lady. People would often comment on her style, intelligence, and achievements with underlying tones of surprise, as if to suggest that her accomplishments were unusual or unexpected. Instead of letting these remarks diminish her sense of self, Obama stayed grounded in her values, never allowing others' projections to shape her self-worth. She demonstrated a Stoic approach by understanding that these comments often stemmed from societal biases or insecurities rather than an objective assessment of her capabilities. A backhanded compliment is typically more about the person giving it than the person receiving it. When someone feels the need to assert dominance by belittling another under the guise of praise, they are often grappling with their own insecurities. In response, Stoicism teaches us to maintain inner calm and not let others' judgments define our self-view. Rather than internalizing the backhanded compliment, we can view it objectively, recognizing that it reflects the other person's mindset more than it does our performance or worth. In the business world, we can look at figures like Elon Musk, who frequently receives backhanded compliments from competitors and critics alike. Phrases like "he's ambitious for someone so reckless" or "his success is surprising given his lack of traditional corporate background" are common ways people attempt to subtly undermine his achievements while still acknowledging them. Musk, however, tends to ignore these remarks, staying focused on his goals rather than on others' backhanded praise or criticisms. This embodies the Stoic principle of controlling our responses and not letting others' opinions disrupt our purpose or direction. Imagine you've spent weeks developing a presentation, investing time, research, and effort to make it impactful. After delivering it, a colleague says, "Not bad for someone who doesn't usually present." This comment, though disguised as praise, carries an undertone suggesting that your presentation skills are lacking, or that your success was unexpected. A non-Stoic reaction might involve internalizing this remark, questioning your abilities, or feeling the need to prove yourself in future presentations. However, Stoic philosophy encourages a different approach. By applying self-sufficiency, you can recognize that this comment doesn't define your abilities or worth. Instead, you could respond calmly, thanking the person for their feedback without letting it affect your self-view. This demonstrates both strength and confidence. showing that you are secure in your abilities and do not need external validation. In politics, backhanded compliments are particularly rampant, often used to diminish opponents. Hillary Clinton, for instance, has faced her share of these remarks. Comments like, "She's quite knowledgeable," for a woman in politics, subtly attempt to cast doubt on her capabilities by attributing her success to something surprising or unexpected. Clinton has shown resilience by focusing on her own path, undeterred by such remarks, embodying the Stoic principle that our value is inherent, not contingent on others' limited perceptions. The key takeaway from a Stoic perspective is to detach from the judgment behind backhanded compliments and see them for what they are, reflections of others' internal struggles. By understanding this, we can prevent ourselves from being affected by their opinions. Instead of reacting or feeling diminished, we maintain our self-worth and stay grounded in our accomplishments. This doesn't mean we ignore feedback, rather, it means we discern which feedback is constructive and which is rooted in someone else's insecurity. Backhanded compliments, though framed as compliments, are tools used to exert control and subtly challenge another's self-esteem. But by embracing Stoicism, we learn to withstand these attempts at undermining our confidence, staying focused on our true abilities and self-worth. Instead of questioning ourselves, we can calmly recognize the intention behind these remarks and continue on our path with confidence, letting the comments slide off without affecting our inner peace. 3. Social exclusion as a sign of hidden resentment. Social exclusion, especially when done selectively, is one of the most painful forms of hidden resentment. It's that sinking feeling you get when you realize you've been left out, whether it's a group trip, a dinner, or an event that everyone but you seems to know about. Often, the excuses come pouring in. "Oh, we thought you'd be too busy," or "it was a last-minute thing." But when these patterns of exclusion become frequent, they reveal something deeper, a subtle form of rejection or even resentment. In Stoic philosophy, relationships are valued based on their substance and genuine connection, rather than on appearances or social convenience. Seneca, one of the most prominent Stoic philosophers, said, "Avoid people who are not friends to themselves." This profound advice reminds us that those who are comfortable with themselves are likely to treat others with respect and sincerity. If someone consistently leaves you out, it reflects their discomfort with either themselves or with you. True friends would never exclude you in this way. Their respect and admiration for you would naturally lead to inclusion without question. Consider the experiences of Princess Diana, a beloved figure who often found herself excluded from the inner circles of the British royal family. Despite her popularity and humanitarian work, she was frequently kept at a distance, symbolically excluded from events and gatherings. Rather than internalizing this exclusion, Diana continued to focus on her own values and work, building a legacy through her humanitarian efforts. She didn't let this exclusion define her worth. Instead, she channeled her energy into causes that were meaningful to her, creating a space where her contributions and identity were valued. Social exclusion can also be seen in the world of business and politics, where selective networking and alliances often result in certain figures being left out intentionally. Think of the early days of Apple, when Steve Jobs was ousted from the company he co-founded. The exclusion was painful, but Jobs used it as a period of self-reflection and growth, eventually founding Next and returning to Apple years later. His experience is a powerful reminder that exclusion, while painful, can serve as an opportunity for personal growth and transformation. The Stoic response to such exclusion is grounded in self-respect and acceptance. Instead of allowing the exclusion to erode our self-esteem or drive us to seek validation from those who rejected us, Stoicism encourages us to observe the situation objectively. If someone's actions repeatedly show that they don't value our presence, then it may be wise to reconsider the role they play in our lives. By detaching from the need for approval and focusing on relationships that offer genuine connection, we strengthen our inner resilience. A practical Stoic approach would be to address the exclusion calmly, not from a place of resentment, but from a place of self-assuredness. Imagine discovering that friends went on a weekend getaway without informing you, only to find out later through social media or mutual acquaintances. Rather than stewing in anger or feeling a sense of inadequacy, a Stoic response would be to address it directly but calmly. You might say, "I noticed the trip looked like a lot of fun. If there's another one, I'd love to be a part of it." This not only signals your awareness of the exclusion, but also opens the door for a conversation about the value of the friendship without coming off as defensive. Michelle Obama provides a fitting example of this kind of strength. As First Lady, she faced criticism and was often marginalized by those who questioned her role and background. Despite the subtle exclusion she faced from various groups, she chose not to dwell on the opinions of those who didn't value her. Instead, she invested her time and energy into initiatives that mattered to her, building relationships with people who truly supported her vision. By focusing on meaningful work and relationships, she demonstrated the Stoic principle of prioritizing connections that enrich one's life over those that merely exist for appearance's sake. Social exclusion, as painful as it is, can reveal who genuinely values you and who does not. When faced with this situation, Stoicism teaches us not to internalize rejection, but to see it as a way to refine our circle of influence. If someone doesn't see your worth, let them drift out of your life without resentment. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." In other words, respond to exclusion not with bitterness but with grace, seeking relationships that genuinely respect and embrace who you are. The beauty of this Stoic approach is that it ultimately leads to a life filled with authentic connections. By observing exclusion as a signal, rather than as an injury, we can recalibrate our focus toward relationships where mutual respect is present. True friendships are not based on proximity but on genuine regard and shared values. 4. Busy only when it comes to you. When someone frequently claims they're too busy to spend time with you but seems to have ample time for others, it's a strong indicator of misplaced priorities. This can be particularly disheartening when you've invested time, energy, and emotion into a relationship that feels one-sided. Although they might argue they're overwhelmed or stretched thin, the reality is that people make time for what matters to them. If someone repeatedly fails to prioritize you, it's less about their schedule and more about their level of interest or value placed on your relationship. Stoicism teaches us a critical lesson here. We cannot control others' choices or feelings. We can only control how we respond. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor and one of the most influential Stoic philosophers, wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." This statement underscores the Stoic commitment to focusing on personal growth and integrity rather than seeking validation or loyalty from others who may not reciprocate it. When someone continuously places you at the bottom of their priorities, it's a sign to reevaluate the relationship rather than feel slighted by their choices. Consider the experiences of British Prime Minister Winston Churchill during World War II. Churchill was known for his relentless drive, often putting in grueling hours to lead his country through one of the most challenging periods in modern history. However, despite his dedication to work, Churchill never neglected the people he valued. His commitment to his closest allies and his sense of duty showed that even in the busiest times, he prioritized the relationships that truly mattered to him. If a world leader during a global crisis could make time for those important to him, it reminds us that too busy is often an excuse rather than a genuine limitation. Similarly, think of someone like Oprah Winfrey, who, even with a hectic schedule, has always prioritized certain relationships and values over sheer busyness. She's known to nurture close friendships and partnerships with people like Maya Angelou and Gayle King, showing that real connection is possible even amidst immense responsibility. If someone like Oprah, with her vast commitments, can make time for her inner circle, it reinforces the notion that time is about prioritization. People will invest time in what or who they truly value. In a personal scenario, imagine you frequently reach out to a friend to make plans, only to receive responses like, "Sorry, I'm just swamped right now. Maybe next time." Yet, scrolling through social media, you see photos of them attending events with others, going on outings, and making time for various activities. This pattern reveals a painful truth. While they may not dislike you, they're simply not prioritizing you. Stoicism encourages us not to react out of frustration or resentment, but rather to accept the reality with composure and dignity. It's a reminder to focus on relationships where respect and mutual effort are present. A Stoic approach would suggest responding calmly to this pattern without internalizing it as a reflection of your worth. Instead, recognize it as an indication of their priorities, rather than continuing to reach out and hoping for a different response. Take a step back. Give yourself the opportunity to focus on other friendships and connections that are genuinely reciprocal. The philosophy of Stoicism advises us to avoid dwelling on things outside our control, others' choices included. When we release the need for validation from those who don't prioritize us, we reclaim our dignity and self-respect. Steve Jobs, co-founder of Apple, faced a similar situation with some colleagues and acquaintances who seemed interested in his company or ideas only when it benefited them, rather than wasting time on people who didn't reciprocate his commitment or vision. Jobs focused his energy on partnerships and teams that shared his dedication. His decision to work with those who truly valued the mission of Apple rather than those who merely wanted the association is a prime example of prioritizing genuine connections over superficial ones. There's power in reclaiming your time and energy, and no longer investing in relationships that don't honor or respect your presence. It's not about cutting people off with resentment. It's about acknowledging reality and choosing to engage with people who align with your values. By doing this, you make space in your life for those who genuinely appreciate and cherish your company. As Marcus Aurelius would say, this is about being proactive in your relationships and living with integrity, not passively hoping for others to change. When we step back from relationships that are one-sided or insincere, we protect our inner peace and preserve our energy for connections that are mutually enriching. By doing so, we foster a sense of independence and self-respect, realizing that our worth is not dependent on whether someone else finds the time for us. This Stoic perspective allows us to remain centered, unaffected by others' priorities, and focused on building a circle of relationships grounded in mutual appreciation. 5. Avoidance of physical contact as a signal of discomfort. Physical avoidance, especially in contexts where casual touch is socially acceptable, often speaks volumes about underlying emotions. A person's hesitation to engage in even the smallest forms of contact, a handshake, a pat on the shoulder, or even standing close, can be a strong indication of discomfort or emotional distance. This isn't necessarily a reflection of your value or worth, but rather of the other person's internal state. Stoicism offers a powerful approach here. Instead of letting this subtle rejection create self-doubt, the Stoic principle of ataraxia, or unshaken calm, guides us to observe without judgment. This means we maintain an inner peace, understanding that this discomfort belongs to them, not us. We don't need to internalize their distance as a personal failure or something to fix. Instead, we can acknowledge it with acceptance, recognizing that each person has their own boundaries and emotional needs. Consider the example of Mahatma Gandhi, a global icon known for his stoic composure and non-reactive approach to personal and social challenges. Despite his wide influence, Gandhi often encountered people who were uncomfortable with his ideologies or his presence, especially in the early years of his work. Some would physically withdraw or avoid engaging with him altogether. Yet Gandhi didn't take this as a personal slight. Instead, he continued his mission, knowing that others' discomfort was not a reflection of his worth or goals. He embodied the Stoic principle of ataraxia, remaining calm and focused, accepting that others' reactions were beyond his control. Similarly, in the political arena, Angela Merkel, former Chancellor of Germany, often demonstrated restraint and acceptance of personal boundaries. Known for her reserved demeanor, Merkel faced situations where physical proximity or social warmth were sometimes avoided by others due to cultural differences or political tension. Instead of reacting or forcing a connection, Merkel simply acknowledged these boundaries, maintaining her professional focus without seeking validation through physical gestures. Her approach reflects the Stoic mindset, where emotional calm and respect for others' boundaries take precedence over social expectations. In a personal context, imagine you reach out to a friend with a friendly gesture, a handshake, a hug, or even a light touch on the shoulder, and notice that they pull away slightly or seem tense. A typical response might be to feel awkward or even rejected, questioning if there's something about you that caused discomfort. However, the Stoic approach would encourage you to detach from this assumption. Rather than letting it trigger self-doubt, you accept it as their preference, respecting their need for space. This response not only prevents unnecessary emotional disturbance, but also builds your resilience, as you learn to navigate social cues with calmness rather than insecurity. Physical contact is often seen as a fundamental way to establish connection, trust, and warmth, but it is not the sole indicator of a meaningful relationship. Stoicism teaches us to look beyond the surface and not to measure relationships by gestures alone. If someone shies away from touch, it does not necessarily mean they harbor negative feelings. It could be rooted in personal boundaries, cultural norms, or individual comfort levels. By respecting these boundaries without taking offense, we maintain our own emotional stability and uphold the dignity of the relationship. Consider the example of Japanese culture, where physical contact is generally minimized, especially in formal or public settings. Japanese business professionals might avoid handshakes, preferring respectful bows instead. To interpret this as coldness or discomfort would be misguided, as it's simply a reflection of cultural values. A Stoic would recognize this without judgment, understanding that boundaries around touch vary widely. This perspective helps us appreciate the diversity of human interaction without feeling personally impacted. Furthermore, in the realm of public figures, someone like Queen Elizabeth II exemplifies a restrained approach to physical contact. Known for her dignified and somewhat reserved demeanor, she often maintained formal distance even with those close to her. This wasn't seen as coldness or aloofness, but as a boundary consistent with her role. Observing her, one learns that true connection doesn't rely on physical gestures. It's demonstrated through respect, attention, and consistency. The Queen's approach reflects the Stoic belief in maintaining boundaries and respecting others' preferences without attaching personal significance to every gesture. A Stoic approach to physical distance involves self-assuredness and respect for others' boundaries. When someone seems uncomfortable with touch, rather than feeling offended or questioning our worth, we recognize that their comfort level is simply a facet of who they are. There's no need to push for closeness or take their distance as a sign of rejection. Instead, we focus on fostering genuine connection through mutual respect, understanding that meaningful relationships are built on much more than touch. Through the lens of Stoicism, we learn that acceptance and calm observation are our most powerful tools in navigating social dynamics. by choosing not to react emotionally to another's discomfort with physical contact. We maintain our inner peace and show a deeper respect for the other person's individuality. The Stoic path is one of emotional resilience, an acknowledgement that others' behavior is beyond our control and that our energy is better spent cultivating relationships based on shared values, rather than clinging to social expectations of closeness or physical proximity. 6. Vanishing act during times of crisis. When hard times hit, people often reveal their true priorities. It's easy for friends to be present during joyful moments. But when you face real challenges, the crowd tends to thin out. This vanishing act during a crisis can be deeply painful, especially if you had considered these people to be a reliable source of support. Suddenly, the friends who once seemed dependable are nowhere to be found, and the silence can be as cutting as the hardship itself. Stoicism, however, offers a perspective that turns this pain into a source of strength. Marcus Aurelius, a Stoic philosopher and Roman emperor, once wrote about embracing adversity, noting that hardship is a true test of one's character and the character of those around us, rather than resenting those who leave. Stoicism encourages us to focus on those who remain, while also cultivating resilience within ourselves. The Stoic mindset reframes these moments as opportunities for self-discovery, teaching us to lean into self-reliance rather than depending solely on others for support. In a modern example, think of former U.S. President Barack Obama during the financial crisis of 2008. When the nation's economy was crumbling, he faced immense pressure, with many supporters and allies pulling back in fear of the overwhelming challenges ahead. In that moment, Obama had to stand resilient, relying on his core team and, ultimately, his inner strength. He couldn't depend on everyone who had been with him during his campaign. He had to focus on self-reliance, making hard decisions independently and surrounding himself only with those who truly supported his vision. This experience taught him to stand firm amid crisis, embodying the Stoic ideal of embracing hardship as a test of strength and clarity. Similarly, Steve Jobs, co-founder of Apple, faced his own vanishing act when he was ousted from the company he had helped build. During this time, many of his supposed supporters faded away, leaving him to navigate this personal and professional crisis largely on his own. Rather than allowing this abandonment to embitter him, Jobs used it as an opportunity to rebuild himself, eventually launching new ventures that would redefine his career and bring him back to Apple with even greater influence. Through this experience, he embraced the Stoic principle of turning adversity into fuel for personal growth, realizing that hardship reveals who truly stands by you, and that sometimes standing alone is an essential step in one's journey. In personal relationships, this phenomenon is often seen when a person undergoes a difficult period, whether it's a health crisis, financial hardship, or a career setback. You may reach out to friends for comfort, expecting their support, only to find silence. This absence is painful, but it's also a powerful revelation. As the Stoics would advise, rather than feeling abandoned, view it as a lesson in resilience. When people fade away during your lowest moments, they're showing you where you stand in their lives. It's a harsh but valuable reminder that some relationships are seasonal, and that true friends are those who endure alongside you through all seasons. A Stoic approach to such situations involves observing the behavior of others without judgment or resentment. Marcus Aurelius advised against harboring bitterness, urging instead to accept the reality of human nature. People are often motivated by self-interest or fear, and their departure in times of crisis is not necessarily a personal betrayal. By recognizing this, you free yourself from resentment and focus on what is within your control, your own response, your ability to endure, and your capacity to emerge stronger. This perspective fosters self-reliance, helping you to grow independent of the validation or support of others. In this light, consider Oprah Winfrey, who faced significant challenges throughout her career, from public criticism to personal hardships. Despite these difficulties, she remained steadfast, drawing strength from within and focusing on those few who stood by her. Her journey is a testament to the Stoic ideal of resilience. She didn't dwell on those who doubted or abandoned her. Instead, she used adversity as a stepping stone, building an empire and forming relationships with people who genuinely valued her. Oprah's experience underscores the Stoic belief that hardship is a powerful filter, revealing the relationships worth nurturing and the ones best left behind. When personal crisis hits, the Stoic response isn't to resent those who leave, but to focus on cultivating inner strength. It's about turning inward, recognizing that while we may value companionship, we are fully capable of standing on our own. This doesn't mean we should isolate ourselves or reject help. Rather, it means valuing our own resilience as the primary source of strength. In this way, those who choose to remain become a blessing, while those who vanish are simply a reminder of our own self-sufficiency. To apply this in daily life, consider how you can use moments of adversity to practice Stoic principles. When you reach out and receive no response, take a breath and remind yourself that your value isn't determined by others' presence or absence. This is an opportunity to reaffirm your own strength and to focus on those who truly support you. By adopting a Stoic mindset, you turn moments of abandonment into lessons in independence, realizing that you are capable of weathering life's storms with or without others. In embracing the Stoic philosophy, we learn that crises are not only tests of personal resilience, but also filters that reveal the quality of our relationships. Rather than dwelling on who didn't show up, we learn to honor those who did, while also appreciating the strength we possess to stand alone. 7. Gossip as a form of betrayal. Gossip can be one of the most damaging forms of betrayal, unraveling trust in ways that are often hard to repair. It spreads quickly, distorting facts and turning private matters into public issues. When someone you thought you could trust speaks about you behind your back, it reveals a fundamental disrespect for your relationship. The pain from this betrayal is amplified by the subtlety of gossip. It usually operates in the shadows, leaving the victim unaware until the damage is already done. Stoicism offers a path through this hurt, emphasizing integrity and inner strength over retaliation. Epictetus, one of the most respected Stoic philosophers, teaches us, first, say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. This means embodying the values we hold dear, regardless of how others behave, instead of succumbing to anger or seeking revenge. Stoicism encourages us to rise above and remain true to our principles. By doing so, we avoid becoming entangled in the same toxic cycle that hurt us in the first place. Gossip may erode trust, but our response can either rebuild or further destroy our own sense of self-respect and integrity. Consider the experience of Meghan Markle, who faced intense public scrutiny and betrayal by individuals within her own social circles. Personal stories and intimate details about her life were leaked to the media, causing a storm of rumors and half-truths. Rather than retaliating publicly or engaging in a war of words, Meghan and Prince Harry chose to distance themselves, maintaining dignity and focusing on their own mental health and happiness. This response exemplifies the Stoic lesson of responding with resolve and integrity rather than anger. By refusing to engage with the negativity, they demonstrated a commitment to protecting their peace and preserving their values, rather than seeking to correct every rumor. In another powerful example, think of Queen Elizabeth II, who has faced numerous instances of gossip and criticism throughout her reign. As a global figure, she has been the subject of countless rumors, many of which have come from individuals within her own extended family and circle. Despite this, The queen has always responded with restraint, upholding her duty without getting involved in public disputes or retaliations. Her response embodies the Stoic principle of enduring gossip with quiet dignity, choosing to focus on her responsibilities rather than getting distracted by petty dramas. In doing so, she maintains her integrity and remains above the fray, showing that true strength lies in restraint. In our personal lives, gossip often arises in the most unexpected ways. You may confide in a friend about a private matter, only to discover later that they shared your words with others. This betrayal can feel like a personal attack, especially if the gossip twists your words or intentions. In these moments, Stoicism teaches us not to waste energy on retaliation or anger, but to instead observe the situation with clarity. If someone has shown a willingness to betray your trust, that's a revelation about their character. Rather than seeking revenge, a Stoic response would be to calmly distance yourself, choosing relationships that uphold respect and confidentiality. The key here is to resist the urge to even the score or engage in further gossip to defend yourself. By doing so, you avoid mirroring the very behavior that caused the harm. As Epictetus reminds us, integrity is about doing what aligns with our values, regardless of how others act. If you discover that someone has been speaking about you behind your back, choose instead to reinforce your own principles by setting boundaries. This isn't about cutting people off with resentment, but about valuing your peace and only investing in relationships that bring trust and respect. A practical approach would be to approach the person who betrayed you, if appropriate, and calmly express your disappointment. You might say something like, "I shared that information with you in confidence, and I was surprised to hear it shared with others. I value trust and confidentiality in my relationships." This allows you to stand up for your values without engaging in anger or escalating the situation. By communicating your principles clearly, you give the other person an opportunity to reflect on their actions while reinforcing your commitment to integrity. Barack Obama's political career offers another example of dealing with gossip and betrayal with grace. Throughout his presidency, Obama was often the subject of intense scrutiny, and people within and outside his circle would leak information or criticize him indirectly. Instead of reacting defensively or retaliating, he often chose to address only the issues that mattered most to him, letting petty gossip fade into the background. This ability to stay focused on his goals, rather than getting pulled into every rumor, demonstrates the Stoic idea of preserving energy for what truly matters. Obama's response shows that we don't need to engage with every slight. Instead, we can choose to act with dignity and focus on our higher purpose. In a Stoic approach to gossip, the emphasis is always on maintaining inner peace and not letting the actions of others dictate our responses. Gossip may reveal who doesn't honor confidentiality, but it also offers us a chance to practice resilience. Rather than getting bogged down by the betrayal, we can focus on the relationships that genuinely enrich our lives and support us. The Stoic path encourages us to keep moving forward, building a circle of trust with those who respect us and distancing ourselves from those who do not. Ultimately, the Stoic lesson in dealing with gossip is one of self-respect. By choosing not to retaliate, not to engage in counter-gossip, and by setting clear boundaries, we preserve our own peace. Gossip may try to bring us down, but our response can keep us elevated. Through dignity and resolve, we show that our character is not defined by the words of others, but by our own actions and values. As we bring these insights together, one thing becomes clear: real relationships are built on respect, integrity, and mutual support, while superficial ones rely on hidden motives, judgment, and manipulation. The journey through Stoicism has shown us that understanding the true nature of others is not about becoming guarded or cynical. It's about nurturing a sense of wisdom and self-respect. We've seen how smiles, compliments, And friendly gestures can sometimes hide jealousy, resentment, or insecurity. And we've learned to recognize these signs not with bitterness, but with a discerning, Stoic eye. Through Stoicism, we gain the clarity to discern which relationships are truly worth nurturing and which ones may only serve to drain us. Life, after all, is short, and our time and energy are precious. The Stoics teach us that our peace of mind and inner strength are worth far more than the temporary comfort of fitting in with people who don't genuinely value us. By embracing these principles, we cultivate the strength to let go of people who don't honor us, freeing ourselves to invite connections that celebrate our worth and our growth. This journey through Stoicism is ultimately a path toward empowerment. When we learn to view others' behaviors as a reflection of their character, not a measure of our own value, we reclaim our self-respect. Epictetus's wisdom reminds us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. In other words, our worth isn't determined by others' perceptions, but by our unwavering sense of self-respect. We may encounter people who fail to recognize our value or who undermine it. But in the end, it's our response that defines us. So, as we continue on this path, let us hold close the wisdom that Stoicism imparts. Let us look beyond appearances, embracing relationships grounded in mutual respect, trust, and support. By adopting this clarity, we gain the strength to walk away from connections that don't serve us, knowing that our well-being is worth more than any superficial alliance. Life is filled with people who will come and go, but those who remain are those who truly value us. Invest in relationships that elevate you, not diminish you, and hold fast to the inner strength that Stoicism teaches. In a world where people are quick to mask true intentions behind kind words and smiles, Stoicism offers a beacon of clarity and resilience. The power lies within us to decide which connections are worthy of our time and trust. By practicing discernment, we guard our inner peace and open our lives to relationships that are as genuine and steadfast as the principles we hold dear.